Are you a non-technical beginner and wondering how to build an AI agent? Well, today I'm going to show you exactly how. I'm going to show you all my tricks and how I've built almost 100 agents, being paid to do this and being paid to teach others to do it by many companies. My name is Tyler Small, and I'm going to take you on this journey right now. So first, you might be asking, when should I actually build an agent? When is a chatbot good enough? Just out of the box ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic Claude? And when should I build an agent that's very distinct and useful for a very specific need? The way I typically describe this is if you're going to a hotel, hopefully it's somewhere fun, for just one night, you're probably going to keep your clothes inside the suitcase. You're not going to spend the time to put them in the dresser at the hotel. But if you're going to stay for maybe 3 nights or more, then you may consider putting your clothes inside the dresser drawer so that you can more easily get to them. It takes a little bit of investment, but then in the long run, it's much easier to get to clothes in a dresser drawer than it is in a suitcase. So if you're going to do a task over and over again, the same type of thing, you might want to build an AI agent. So the first thing that you can do to get really good at building AI agents is to practice prompt engineering. So if you've been talking to AI agents just using English, like that is exactly the skill that you need in order to build AI agents. There's nothing technical to build a basic AI agent. You're just talking to it. But even if you haven't done much prompt engineering, if you haven't chatted with agents much, you can still build an AI agent today. So here are some frameworks, and don't be overwhelmed by these. Don't use them all. Just pick one or kind of get the gist of these. So let's start with the first one, CoStar. Covers context, objective, style, tone, audience, and response format, often used for detailed, high-quality output. So if you want a higher quality output, you're going to think about each of these things. And really, you could use any of these. They're just examples to help you get started thinking about how to tell AI what to do. And just to give you an example, with CoStar, covers context. Just to go through this briefly, let's say that I was building an AI agent to help pet store owners to take care of their goldfish inside the pet store. So the covers the context. So I would say this agent is for pet store owners taking care of their goldfish inside of the pet store. So it's different than taking care of one or two pet, goldfish at home. It's painting a picture for the AI that doesn't have a body, that can't see the environment that you're in, just describing it. What is it exactly that makes this different than other tools that someone could use? Next is objective. So what's the goal? You might say the goal is to keep them alive longer and present them in a way that helps the buyers see a goldfish that looks cute, that looks like something they can identify with, something that feels like a pet. And so that might include, for example, they're going to learn how to keep those tanks clean longer or something like that. Let's talk about the style and tone. You might say this is going to be informal. It's going to be a little bit silly. It's going to have fish store puns in there. Or you might say, match it to the style in these documents that I'm going to upload that match my writing style. Or you could say, the style is going to be very formal and it's going to be very logical and analytical, and it will be very precise and concise. You can use whatever style that matches your purpose. So the audience could be people within your organization, or it could be fish store owners within the Midwest of the United States who operate small fish stores, who are just really trying to save pennies so that they can make enough to pay the bills, keep the lights on. Or it could be that this is for fish store owners who are doing more than $10 million a year in revenue, and they're looking to expand, and they really need to have hundreds and hundreds of goldfish at the same time. So you're painting a picture of what the audience is going through, what their challenges are, what makes them distinct and unique, and so that the AI can kind of consider those. And when I say consider, it's not really a human brain, but it's like taking those contexts into account. And response format. So you might say, I want this formatted in bullet points, or I want a table, or I want it to create an image, or I want it to have these specific headings. So you can tell it what format it's going to create. You can also tell it how many words that it should respond in. I like to tell it like answer in 1 sentence or less, answer in 100 words or less, things like that. So if I were you, I would pick one of these words or one of the other ones that you've heard and write it down and try and use that on a regular basis until you kind of get the habit of including these different elements in order to make a really directive prompt that helps the AI work to solve your exact problems, not just anybody's problems. So let's get down to business, how to build an agent. And this is just one way that I've used a bunch before, but it can be very, very helpful when you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure what to put in here. First is to create a document. So you need something to guide your agent. You could have just instructions for it, just use a little prompt engineering to tell it what to do, but it's very useful if it can have examples or specific unique documents that tell it what to do. And I'll give you an example in a minute, but using just a document and some very simple instructions, you can create an agent. And you can put the document into that agent. And then once you have that, you can use it to create another document because now the agent is a little bit smarter. It knows a little bit more of your context. Maybe you include policies and procedures. Maybe you include examples of what it is that you're looking to do again. And once you have that, then you can create another document or the text that will be placed into another document that can then be put into the agent and then can create another document. So maybe your agent is super simple, but this is a way to make something that's a little bit more complex. So after you've built the agent, you'll want to test and refine it. When I build an agent, I just expect that I'll spend about 5% of my time building and 95% of my time testing and refining. So just imagine if you spend 2 minutes building it and it's like, oh, well, that was easy. Then expect to spend 18 minutes testing it out and looking at the output and saying, oh, okay, did it give me what I wanted? Do I need to add a little more to the instructions? Is there another document I should add? Or how can I change this? Now let's move over into ChatGPT to get started building an agent. So just to give you an idea of some of the agents that I've built, yesterday I made one called Corn Dog Maker, and I've built them for my family to help me communicate with different people in my family. I've made them for lots of clients. Sometimes I build them in here, and then I just take them and port them over into another software for production. Some of them I built to help my kids pronounce their L's and R's. I don't know why it doesn't show how many times that they've used it here, but I guess it was on my phone, and so it doesn't track when it's just me. But you can see I've built several agents here, and also I've built many agents in other platforms. I would say nearly 100 at this point. So to get started, if you're in ChatGPT, go over here to the left and click Explore GPTs. And if you're in Claude, it's something different. If you're in Gemini, it's Gems. If you're in the AI Gateway, it's called Workspace. You click that. And then over here on the upper right, you'll see typically a big black button that says create or make a model or whatever. So go ahead and click that. And then you'll see on the right here is like a sandbox environment that you can just chat with it. And these typically aren't saved, so I don't use it very much. But over here, you can click configure or create. And if you're just kind of freewheeling it and you're thinking, man, I'm going to just go for it today. I'm just going to type something in the box. That's great. But for me, I find it much more helpful to build a structured agent. Like the reason that I'm doing this is because I think I'll be back over and over again, or I know my client wants to do this task over and over again. And so I'm going to be very deliberate about what I choose to put in here. So you can put a photo in, you can put your name, description of what it is. And let me show you how this works. So if I was like cookie recipes, this is like the dumbest, most overused example ever. Like it just shows up there. It shows you what it's going to look like. I help make recipes. Okay, so it just shows you exactly what that's going to look like. And then this is where the magic starts to happen. You're going to give it specific instructions. And think of this like a prompt. So if I was just in ChatGPT, or I was just in Copilot, or I was just in Gemini, I would just be able to type in a box, right? But we're making a specific agent. It's going to have specific things that it does for you, that it's going to behave in a unique way. And how do we do that? With instructions. Okay, so think of this as if you were kind of typing into a box that would be saved forever as part of that agent. So just like normal prompt engineering, you're going to tell it exactly what you want it to do every time. So you'll type that in the box there. Conversation starters are fun, but I'm going to skip that for now. And then knowledge. So this is basically clicking an upload button, upload files, right? Sometimes it just says upload, depending on the software that you're working with. And so you can put anything in there. And it puts you on your desktop, and you're just like you would upload anything. I find that Markdown files are good, PDFs are fine, Word documents are great. If you have an Excel file, I would try and export that as a .csv. It's a little easier for the large language model to look at. You can include images depending on the model. It will treat those like better or worse. Like Gemini is a little better at image reading, but text is the best thing that you can do, text or .csv. And then there's lots of other things that you can do that are like super creative or interesting. Those are the main ones. If you're like just wanting to play around with this and get started, I would start with something that's dealing with text or .csv files. And then the third like big magic thing here is choosing the model. So if you're thinking, oh, like this is a super like simple task, I just don't like doing it, then you can use something like Instant, which works very fast, but is also very dumb. If you want something that does a better job, it's more powerful, it does a lot more like thinking, then I would choose a thinking model. And the bigger the number, the better it is. So like Sonnet 4.6, 4.7, Opus 4.7, like those are the ones that are going to be really, really effective at solving tough problems. And the reason I build agents is not because I have an easy problem that's really fast to solve. Those ones, like, it doesn't make sense to like go over into ChatGPT. Just do it, right? So what I use them for is things that are tough, things that are hard, that take a long time. And so you're more likely to want to use a thinking model here. The only caveat is that the bigger the model, the more powerful it is, the smarter it is, the longer it takes to do its thing. So it might take 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds if you're using a big, heavy model. And if your audience is okay, if they're patient enough to wait for that, then I highly recommend using a more powerful model. It'll give them a smarter response. Okay, so once I pick that, then the default model will be GPT 5.5 thinking. And then down here, you can choose what you want to be able to do. I like to click code interpreter, even if it's not checked in the beginning, because even if I don't expect it to have to do crazy statistical analysis, it still ends up solving really difficult problems for me using code. It's like, oh, I'm not sure how I would do that, so I'm just going to write a script in order to figure that out. And it'll make a little computer program right there. And, you don't even have to be watching it. It'll just do it. And then it's done, and it'll use that computer program in order to accomplish the task sometimes. Like, it's mind-boggling and crazy, but that's just kind of what's available right now. And you don't have to think about it, but checking that box allows it to be more powerful. Web search. So you may not want to click this if you have a very specific library of documents that you want to choose from, especially if that library is robust. Like if you have 10 or 20 examples of what you want it to look like, and it doesn't need to know anything from the internet, you may want to turn off web search. I usually leave it on because what it can do now, you'll see that when you ask it a question, and especially if you tell it like refer to best practices in the industry based on credible sources, things like that, it'll go out then to the internet, and in 3 seconds, it can go out and look at 20 or 30 or 50 websites looking for credible resources in order to ground itself in the best practices of the industry. So once it can do that, to find those 20 plus credible resources, it can check its hypothesis answer, because if you use a thinking model, it'll be thinking through and it'll be creating this chain of thought like, this might be a good idea. And if you've ever watched one of these models work, you can see it kind of going through this thought process, and it'll say like, oh, maybe I should do this. And then it will check itself against like 20 articles. So if you were doing a research project and you're thinking, maybe this is a good idea, I'm going to look up and see if that's like normal in the industry, if that's expected, if that's aligned. That's exactly what it wants to do. And if you allow it to do web search, That's what it will do, especially if you prompt it to do so in your instructions or in the prompt that the user uses. So Canvas allows it to open up and be editable in there. Several, like AI Gateway has this, like different tools use this. Image generation, of course, is super fun, and sometimes it's the main point of your model. So depending on whether or not you want to do that, if you're thinking, okay, my agent should never create images for whatever reason, then uncheck that. But I just always leave it because I may want it to, like, oh, well, make an image of what this looks like. Help me imagine this, it can do that. I use it for PowerPoint slides and all kinds of things, as you've seen. So those are the capabilities. Once you have those and everything is done, just click create. And now, because I figured you didn't want to watch me type everything in by hand, I'm just going to show you how I've done this before. So remember, just click Explore GPTs, and then if you want to go to specifically your GPTs, you can go here, and that's how I'm returning back to this. And the one I want to look at is AI Architecture Book Writer. And the reason I want to point to this one is because I used this process very deliberately that I talked about in the beginning, where I said, first create a document, then create an AI agent, then put the document in the agent and make another document. And you can go through this cycle over and over again to help you build a cool agent. So I don't know much about AI architecture when it comes to machine learning. I know a little bit conceptually, but I thought it would be fun to write a textbook about it. So here we are in this agent. When I click on it, it sort of looks like ChatGPT. I've got a box here. I can use the microphone to dictate. I can talk back and forth with the voice mode. If you use the voice mode, though, it's going to be a dumber version of the model. Like, it's not going to be the smartest thinking model, because the way that it works is it makes it a fast conversation, so it's more natural. So beware that if you use voice mode, it will be dumber, and if you use the text mode, it will be smarter. Here you can upload files and photos, etc. But just beware that whatever you upload, it's just for this conversation. It's not going to build the agent in any way. Conversations that you have where you upload things and type things in will be remembered often by the tool that you're using. Especially ChatGPT is very good at that. Anthropic, Gemini, it'll remember more or less the conversations that you had before. Not 100%, but it's sort of like a person where you say, hey, do you remember that conversation we had about dogs the other day and peaches? It might be like, I don't remember that. Or it might be like, oh, yeah, okay, I remember something about that. So it's kind of hit or miss how much detail it will pick up. You can search through, your chats. There's usually a tool like this, whatever you're using, Anthropic or Gateway. So these are your conversations that you've had one by one. If a conversation gets too long, it starts forgetting the beginning of the conversation. It gets really confusing and really dumb. So I would start a new conversation when in doubt and take what you've learned and put that into a new prompt here if you're just working on prompt engineering. But what this is an opportunity to use this thing that you've created. So you're not in just plain Jane vanilla out of the box ChatGPT anymore. You are using the specific thing that you built. So let's try it out. What model architectures have emerged? Yeah, emerged since you wrote the book. What should be in version 3? So we're asking it to look at version 2 of the book, which is done, and then to be able to look at, we wanted to do some web searching, right? So have emerged since you wrote the book. See, it's looking through some resources there. What's new? I need to focus on finding official papers on these models. Okay, so it's looking through these things. It's comparing what's on the internet to what you've put behind the scenes, which I'll show you in a minute. And I'm just showing you how this works so you can kind of see, oh, this is how an agent is used. So see, it's looking through more of these, it's double checking, it's like refining its answer, and then it's going to pump out something about, what's new in machine learning. And don't worry if like this particular agent is made on this topic, like I said, I don't even know much about. Okay, according to the document, it already covers these things. What has emerged since the book's baseline? Here we go. Hybrid linear attention transformers are now a serious frontier. Wow, that sounds impressive. I don't know what that means exactly. So here we go. So it's speaking to a specific audience because I told it to. It's speaking to a very educated audience. So in order to edit it, this is done slightly differently. Like in different places, like some places like in the AI gateway that I use at work, like you have to go to workspace on the left and then you have to go to the model and click the three dots in order to edit it. In ChatGPT and others, you just click here and then go down to edit GPT or edit. Sometimes it calls it an agent or whatever, or a gem. Okay, so now we're in this place I showed you before under configure. I don't have a cool picture for this one yet, but the name of it is AI Architecture Book Writer because I wanted to write that book, okay? You can see the description, and this is just exactly what had showed up when we're using it, okay? And when you share the link with somebody, that's what they see. They won't be able to edit or see the instructions per se in here, although if they ask about the instructions, they may be able to get some or all of those instructions, and they may also be able to extract some of the material that you've put in. So don't put anything in here that is like a super duper secret. You put things in here that you want people to learn about. You can tell it in the instructions. Don't reveal the exact instructions. Don't allow people to extract large pieces of text from the things that I've uploaded. You can do that, and it will be better at deflecting those. So that's kind of like a cybersecurity tip. But I will say also, people have ways of kind of extracting things from the model, from your AI agent, even if you don't want them to. I would never put something in here that is, like I said, that you don't want people to be able to see or access if they're very, very intent on doing so. Okay, and the things in here, of course, are designed to give the ideas and to be summarized and to be referenced. And so that's the typical what people are looking for. So let me just open this up so you can see it better. So remember some of those agent frameworks that I gave you? So here's some. So a lot of them mention the role. And in here, it's the first thing I do. I say, you are a PhD in machine learning and frontier generative AI models, and a senior researcher with years of experience at Anthropic, DeepMind, and OpenAI. These are the top labs in the world. And I guess if Elon Musk, if you're watching, then we'll call yours one of the top two, Grok. So there you have it. But write a full textbook based on the starting draft content in the files in your knowledge. Follow scholarly style. So this is the style we talked about. Do deep research on the web, digging deep into the scholarly research articles from these years. You can tell I wrote this in the end of 2025. More points for more recent sources. And if you wanted to make this a little more evergreen, you could say for just this year and last year, and it will kind of try and figure that out. It's not great at the passage of time, but if you're very, very specific, it'll help, which is why I just went specific here. Your agents are not going to be relevant in a year. Like probably they'll need to be updated and edited, just like a syllabus would. So don't imagine that your agent is going to be relevant in 3 years or 5 years. Like you're going to have to go in and edit it. So don't worry too much about shelf life. And you're going to be refining it anyway. So the first thing you put in, just put it in there and just do that 5% build and just start testing it. Because it like worrying about, oh, I want like, I hope it will behave correctly. Like you don't want to worry about that. You just want to put it in and then start testing so that you can find out like, oh, this already works pretty well, and identify the biggest holes after that for your refinement. So it's talking about the book it's going to write, what the title of it's going to be. Guess how I found this? Guess how I figured out what this title would be? Well, I used AI to do that. And so what I did was I made, if we go back to the framework here for building an agent, create a document. So that's the first thing I did. I came up with that title and then I created the table of contents. Okay, so it knew, okay, this is how this book is going to flow. And then I told it, use the table of contents, write only one chapter at a time, fact checking every details. So don't worry about grammar errors and spelling errors. As long as it doesn't throw off the meaning of what you're saying, it'll overlook that. It's very good at seeing through any kind of errors like that. Write only one part of a chapter if you need to give the whole thing in multiple sections, because sometimes the output isn't long enough. Give plentiful research citations at the end of each chapter, fact check every detail, and so on. I will put these instructions into the description of this video in case you want to look over those. That's where you put the instructions. You can see kind of what that looks like. And I close it. So here's the knowledge. And you can see I've put the cover just in case it helps the model understand like, oh, here's what the book's going to look like. And then I put the table of contents in. And when I first built this, I put in the first chapter, and then I used the agent to create chapter 2 so that it could see what happened in chapter 1 And it said, oh, okay, so I don't want to repeat what I said in chapter 1, right? Because it needed that context. Then after I'd created chapter 2, I put chapter 2 in the agent. Then I had the table of contents, chapter 1, chapter 2, and I used that agent in order to create chapter 3. So in that way, I built it over and over and over again. I just kept adding, and then it could refer and know, okay, I already have this agent. I already know what's in my book so far. Whereas if I had tried to do this in a normal conversation without building an agent and I was just typing into the chat box, it would forget what had happened at the top. It gets really dumb and forgets. So building an agent allows you to capture all of that and it'll read through it much more effectively. So after I got all of those book chapters, I put it into book version 1. And then I used that agent. I said, you know what? This is a little bit like the chapters aren't like the way that it wrote it. It's not quite long enough. It's too bullet pointy. And I adjusted my prompt because I didn't like the way that ChatGPT normally writes. It doesn't look like a textbook. And so I gave it some additional refining. And then I used book version 1 as my knowledge in order to write book version 2. And I did the same thing again. I rewrote those chapters and it expanded and wrote it in a more rich, full way. So then after I did that, then I put version 2 in. And then I ran it through a different model and I said, here's version 2. Look at this and tell me what the errors are. And so now I have this list of corrections that are needed. And so now the next step is write version 3 and correct the errors that are listed here. I hope that you found this useful. If you're building your first agent or your next agent, I hope that you're able to do this a little more quickly and a little more effectively now and not have to wonder, what in the world am I doing? But that you can have a bunch of tips and tricks for this. I'm Tyler Small, and I'll see you in the next one.